Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Driven Youth, where we grow more each day. For those that don't know, my name is Winston. Today, I am joined with my brothers, man. This is going to be a good one because we're talking about some heat today. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. I'm going to turn it over to the man himself. Emeka, go ahead and introduce yourself, please.
Hey, good people. My name is Emeka. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys today. I am
Yes,
one
sir.
of two members from Igbo Table Talk podcast, and it's a pleasure
Yes,
to
sir.
join.
And I am Sage, mostly known as being Winston's little brother. Um, just glad to be here, glad to talk.
And you know what's interesting? I'll say this in case y'all are wondering. I asked both of these gentlemen to join me on this today, as in this wasn't
Yeah,
planned. This
about
wasn't a
7 minutes
game.
ago.
That part.
Yeah, about 7 minutes ago for Sage, and about an hour ago for Mecca, and they were like, "Yeah, let's do this." So that's why they're my brothers, and I'm rocking with them, and I appreciate them. But let's go ahead and jump into this topic today. We're going to be talking about the opera role. Mecca, did I say that right? You know, I'm not. I
Nah,
don't
don't
speak
don't do
Igbo
that to
like that.
yourself. You nailed it, man. What you mean? You
Okay.
said that right.
I appreciate that. See, we're gonna be talking about the Opara role. The Opara role essentially is the first son. We're gonna get into it a little bit more, but if you're from any cultural, background or any sort of specifically Nigerian, you know that the Opara role comes with a set of responsibilities in and of itself that are unequivocal and hard. A lot of people crumble under it. A lot of people don't live up to it. A lot of people run away from it. But then again, there's a lot of people that knock it out of the park as well. So we really wanted to take a couple minutes, kind of dive into this thing a little bit, dissect it. I'm an opera myself. Emeka's an opera, and Sage is filling that role now. So let's jump into it, bro. I'm gonna turn it over to Emeka first. Let's talk about that role. Like, what is it in your opinion? What does opera even mean? Where did it come from? Give us the lowdown on it
For
all,
sure,
bro.
for sure. I do want to say quick second. I love how you added Sage in there
Mm-hmm.
because what you did was dynamic right there. I'm gonna come back to that though,
Mm-hmm.
because it's a role that can be
Facts.
filled. I saw what you did. That was tough. So Opara
Facts.
is traditionally the firstborn son in every Igbo family. He's the head of different tasks and responsibilities in the community. I guess in Igbo land they would say Nime Eji inside of the immediate compound or family. You have the Opara, and he's the mantle. He's supposed to be the person who is a figurehead for almost every responsibility. If you're having any traditional um, family gathering, he's the first to, after his dad gives him the right, he's the first to maybe pray, or he's the first to grab the biggest piece of meat from the table. Like it's all stuff like that, and as well, Opara is also the individual who is supposed to be the counselor. Like, and Opara is lifelong. So like everyone brings their worries, concerns to Opara. If the sister's about to get married to the suitor has to come and see Opara, and the dad or the Opara like on his own, like he's almost like the knight in shining armor. Although there is a custom of maturing into the role, because even though you're born Opara, right, it doesn't mean that you're gonna operate holistically in that
In
responsibility.
that capacity. Yeah.
Yeah, in that
Yeah.
capacity. And the reason why, because it's game, right? It has to be transitioned
Mm-hmm.
down. So if you don't have
Okay.
an elder or uncles or a dad or older cousin showing you how to walk into accountability, into maturity, into like the governance of understanding the community or your immediate law, the compound where you're from or live, then
Mm-hmm.
I believe and I've seen that opadas don't really function as opadas. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it can be a very sweet ordeal to see. An opada just like doing his thing and working in harmony with his siblings, working in harmony, not being like too pompous about it, right? But then it's also a travesty to see opadas kind of not working their role as the first sons and be expected to do something that they weren't taught. I think that's another
Yeah.
travesty. Then that's unfair.
Yeah.
It is. So the both sides I've seen. So, but that's from Igbo land. Oh, no law all time mea. So that's how they do it back home. But then coming here to the diaspora, just a two-part perspective, a one-two punch. The second part of that is Opara from my perspective in the diaspora, because I wasn't born in
Hmm.
Nigeria. I wasn't born in Igbo land. I was born in Washington D.C., DMV, Uptown, and then spent my latter or younger parts of my childhood into adolescence in Prince George's County, PG, right? So I saw Para from a perspective of cultural clash. I'm trying to balance America and balance Igbo. What does this mean? So and uh,
Facts.
and trying to figure
Facts.
out like why am I supposed to be doing certain things that I just don't want to do, or why am I supposed to be the protector and guardian of a custom that I'm still trying to get my feet wet under? And this was me throughout like my
Mhm.
whole elementary into middle school, um, and honestly, not really having the best direction of Opara, because even with having you know parents in the household, dad there and stuff, you still need to understand certain key game, and if it's not exhibited properly, you still won't walk in Opara well.
I'm gonna just throw this out
Sure.
right there because you brought it up. Because you brought I wasn't gonna bring it
Ah!
up, but you brought it up. So
Yeah, well,
it's here now. We might as well
yeah, it's
talk
here.
about it,
It's here.
right? Because Sage and I are brothers. We didn't grow up with a father, right? Like present in our
Right.
lives, right? You did,
Yes.
right? We grew up with male role models and like
Hmm.
figures and all this, right? And we always felt like, honestly, I'll speak for myself. I'll let Sage speak for
Yeah,
himself.
please
I
do.
always felt like I missed out on a lot of training,
Mm,
like a lot of things that I should have known how to do because I didn't know how to be an opera. I didn't know how to function in that capacity,
okay.
right? So I hear you saying that even with present versus non-present parental figures, there could still be that disconnect there.
Yes. Yes. And let me explain. So, um, in Igbo land, they have this thing called iwaoji, and that's to cut kola nuts. Mm? So I know how to do. I
Hmm.
know how to cut kola nut. I know the ceremony. Like if you, me, Sage, let's say one of our uncles, and then someone who is from a neighboring kindred, to us is in a room, and my dad brings kola nut, and or someone brings kola nut. I know exactly what to do. Give it to the closest person that is from your immediate compound or from your family, or if that person doesn't exist or is not in the room, give it to the neighboring community that's closest to you. So I would easily give it.
Say, you taking notes, bro?
Ah,
Um, it's
I'm
resonating.
saying,
we
It's resonating for
we'll
sure.
review it, but I would give it to you, Winston, the kola nut, the plate, because you're opara,
hmm
right? And we're family, right? And then you
hmm
can show it to Sage and say, Sage, Oji, Obiala. And then he'll just touch the plate. He'll like just put his hand on it. Kind of like this, right? He'll just be like, boom. It's like a little ooh, right?
yeah,
And then it will come back around to me. Then I'll, it goes around the room. Y'all, it goes around long, long, long. I learned that game
yeah.
from my dad right there, and seeing other elders present kola nut. So that piece is there. So let me still give this just due. But to come back, there were a lot of other foundational things that were not done accurately, even with my
Mm.
dad being there. And this brings up goes back to your point. You can still miss out on game of how to operate holistically as an opara with the father figure there. You can also gain a bit.
Facts.
So in reality, two it's a balance beam. It depends on the focus, the focusness of the individual, whether the uncle, the dad, whatever male figure is there. And it also depends on your
Hmm.
attention span to pick up and observe. Because areas where my dad didn't show me certain game as Opara, maybe him not
You
exhibiting
have to find it.
exactly. And I had to look for either an uncle or a cousin to show me how to go
Mm.
and build this thing or like think about investing this way. So
Yeah,
you really
bro. That's something that. Sorry, I'm gonna let
you
you
good.
finish that thought. What were you gonna
No,
say?
so that's something that I had to really understand, but it was still a disadvantage because I had to understand it. So me having to understand it was a disadvantage. Like, oh, what the heck? Like, wait a minute. Like,
I feel you. that's something that I've always beat myself up about not learning how to speak Igbo fluently. Right.
Mm.
I've always told myself, you know, I wish I was taught when I was younger. I wish it was brought to me. I wish I grew up with the language. Da 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 da. But now, like realizing, I feel like maturing is realizing like you're a grown man. Like you can go learn. I took 6 years of Spanish. I could
Wow.
name all the colors in Spanish.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
6 years?
You should know Igbo as well. 6 years, bro. High school. Like they make you.
I ran from.
You took Spanish in college?
I ran from Spanish.
No. Like from middle school throughout to high school, the American education system.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. I should learn multiplying my 12s first before.
What?
I should learn taxes, bro. Why are we learning Spanish?
True.
But essentially, like we had to go like what you're saying about going to seek out that information. Like, yeah, maybe a lot of the time you really do have to go find information about your culture and about the role that you were born into. It's not just going to be presented to you. It's not just going to be taught to you.
Let me add on to that. That's what's happening right now in the diaspora. Almost every single Opara or let's open the floor a little bit, please. Every single young Igbo in the diaspora is doing the same thing. We're going out. We're trying to seek and understand the culture that we weren't given, whether it be the language, which is a phenomenon. The average Igbo household in the diaspora or the kids growing up in the diaspora, we don't speak Igbo fluently. Even me, myself, I'm fluent, but I still have to learn deep Igbo. Like, there's levels of Igbo, bro. I can go super fluent conversation, everything, but there's even levels higher. And I'm like, what is that? You know what I'm saying? So we're all learning, and you're not alone, whether it be you, Sage, or anyone else. Like, it's a phenomenon of just like information cut. Like, hey, we're gonna leave the ball hanging just like this. You guys figure it out. So it's crazy. I don't know how that happened. But anyway.
I know how it happened.
How'd that happen?
They cut off the process that is elders teaching youngers.
Facts.
They just disrupted the whole system.
Man.
And so that's
who?
The powers that be. But if I was to answer from my own knowledge,
let's go.
I would say I'm allowed. I can say what I want to say here.
Talk your talk. What?
Yeah. Talk your talk, bro. But just remember, we're followers of Jesus Christ on this podcast.
Got you. So the people that killed Jesus, then, is how I would describe that.
Okay. So like Jewish people?
Whoa. Okay. So
no, for real. Right?
Now we're okay. I'm not Kanye West. Okay.
He put two hands up. Wait a minute.
I'm not Kanye West. All right. Don't cancel me before I get started, bro.
Okay. I get you.
I'm just saying the people that are in power, authority, people that deem authority over any other man.
Do you think that we have to take we have to take some fault as well?
Yes. Yeah. I think, we also need to take accountability. I think definitely we were shot in the leg, but it's not like we didn't also pour salt in it in ourselves. I think discipline is very lacking throughout the whole community. And that's something you have to know to want. Unless someone is there to teach you, like Emeka said, unless someone's there to teach you, you have to go out there and seek it yourself. And it's hard for anyone to ever come to that realization with having no wise person around.
It's like a maze.
Yeah. What did Kodak say? Kodak said
said a lot of things.
He did say a lot of things. He said I wasn't wild and I just didn't have no guidance. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? I feel like right now, like you brought the topic up of the diaspora,
yes.
Right? Like the young African man in the diaspora has no real guidance.
And how can they become Opara if they are an Opara? Let's just say.
You know what I'm saying?
It's really, really hard because okay, you go and I'll go after.
No. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Because the only person there to to show them what to do is usually the mom or the grandma or the aunt, right? And now
maybe the uncle.
No shade to like maybe an uncle, right? A distant uncle,
right?
The one in the
church
blue
friend
moon that's operating church,
a pastor,
church pastors. You know what I'm saying? Right. So now everything, or let's say 90% of the things that you're learning about this role that you're supposed to be functioning in is coming through the lens of somebody that likely didn't experience that role, or somebody that likely didn't experience that as well.
Yeah. And
you know what I'm saying? So now it's like what you wish you're getting what they wish they would have had. Not necessarily what you need to do.
Let me make it even scarier to add to that. And then imagine having the dad there and you're not, and there's a disenfranchisement of transparency on what you're supposed to do and how you're supposed to do it.
Oh my goodness. Bro.
So
wait, elaborate?
I'm coming. I got you, because remember, the average Igbo household, right, in the diaspora, technically did have an Igbo dad. Think about it. But there's the Oparas, and if we just open the door for a second, the other children, and the gap of understanding culture and the foundation is still there too. So if we open the door and add everyone else in there, that means that the fathers that were in the house that are Igbo didn't even present the right life cycle for this project of Igbo culture. You do this, you do that, and make it enjoyable, make it a consistent learning process. It was more of like a beat down. You speak a few, this is that. You just kind of walk away, and it's like, well, I'm still left not understanding how to transfer this to this. Like, I'm here in the States, and this is the governing of how things are done. But, you're saying Alibo, this and that, which is awesome. And it presents a zeal. It's presented a zeal for most. It presented a zeal for me. But if you're still not given the game in a way where you can practically break it down, like Opara is valued because they are in a position of authority. Okay, what kind of authority? Am I supposed to just yell at everyone around me? No. You're supposed to understand how to read the environment, understand when to speak, how to speak, understand that you're more of a servant than you are even leader. Did you get that? But then if most of our dads who were in the house weren't really showing more servant, they were showing more leader, but it was leader from an authoritarian figure of like, you get me? So it's like King Kong on the chest. It's like, wait a minute. I mean, with all the love,
I'll be honest.
With all the love in the world, it's like I'm not seeing the service you're talking about. I'm seeing more of the authoritative fear me, fear the uncles, because we're all like, we sound like lions when we talk. You see, so we didn't really receive. Let's just go back to our pilots. We didn't really receive, a lot of us actually, the Igbo culture in a enjoyable way, in a way that made it like, oh yeah, I'm gonna take this thing on my back and run. It wasn't until we got older in our 20s where we're like, oh, okay, this is kind of a cool thing.
That's how that's supposed to look.
Yeah, that's how. And we realized, okay, now that like it's cool to be an African, it's cool to be Igbo, Nigerian, whatever. Oh, okay, I can. It's actually a cool thing to be Opara. This is how it's done. You see, so the lack of understanding the service behind Opara is such a problem because the dads that were in the house weren't serving nobody.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about
I was gonna say,
man.
You could go.
Like you said before, Emeka, most dads are there, but I'm actually like the only person that doesn't have a dad within like my close friend group. But all of their dads were the type of dad to just come home from work, take off their shoes, lay on the couch for 14 hours, don't speak to me, and hand me the remote, and then go to your room. So it was never there was never communication. There was never a transferring of knowledge between the dad. And that's why they grow up to resent the dad and hate the dad and cast away the culture. So
Sage,
it's really sad to see.
You just dropped a bar in two right there. Hate hate the culture too. On top of that,
discard the culture.
Discard it and run away from it.
Excuse me, discard.
We don't realize that servant leadership is the only type of leadership. servant leadership is the only leadership that actually makes a difference in anything.
Winston,
right?
If I can add real quick, what's happening in Nigeria right
Yes.
now with this guy?
Talk about it. Go crazy,
Tinubu,
bro. Go crazy.
the guy Tinubu right now, he's not a servant leader. So when he now takes this whole position of president-elect, he's telling himself, he's telling the people that I am authoritatively going to move in position. Mind you, a lot of people in the nation do support him, but not in the same regard of numbers, not in the same value of seeing service and understanding what service is about in the sight of Peter Obi, right? He's like, okay, I'm here. This is me. I'm your leader. Why wouldn't they accept him if he was a servant first?
Exactly. And the reason they push back is because that's what they've always seen. And they know there is no change. When the grandpa is the authoritative person, the father is now authoritative, and now your son is seeing it, so he's going to think that is just the normal way of life. And that's just going to continue and continue.
It's crazy.
Right? To break this, we need to break the notion that as men, we need to be leaders by force.
Yeah.
That is a lie from the devil himself. Like our leadership comes directly from our service to the people that we are responsible for.
Man.
Our wives and our kids and our kin are who we are responsible to. I would say responsible to, not even responsible for.
I'm writing that down, guys. I'm writing it down.
That's tough, right?
Oh my, that was
writing it down.
Responsible to, not
lead
responsible
it and
for.
Write it down. Yo, that was hard.
It's going to my notes. It's going to my notes.
Hey, Winston, that was good.
So hey, that's off the top, bro.
Responsible to. Responsible
to.
He said.
That's tough. That's tough. Nah, so like knowing now that we have to focus on that role, right? Like being responsible to, right? I wanna turn this over to Sage real quick because Sage is kind of functioning in this dual role right now where he's actually acting as the first and second son. I got married, I moved out the house, but we still have responsibilities to our homes. Oparas don't get to walk away. We are locked in.
Yeah.
And in the event where I'm not able to do certain things, Sage is. And Sage is there. So Sage, I want to turn it over to you, man. Talk us through like your thought process, how you've been able to grow into that role, function in that role, and what it felt like being in the passenger seat and then having to jump to the driver's seat within, 6 to 18 months.
Yeah. Honestly, it felt like, how do I say this? I sound lame. It felt like I was built for this. You know what I'm saying? Like, it felt like it wasn't like okay, let me go and do it. I'm ready now. Let me climb over into the driver's seat. It was more like one day I went to sleep as a child and I woke up as a man or someone growing into a man. And since then I've just been going. And when I was fumbling or when I was failing, I would ask questions. I would go to my nearest Opara. Am I saying that? Am I saying that too white? Opara.
You got it. It rolls. Yes, sir.
Quick. I'm built for this. That's what I'm saying, right? It's in my DNA to do that. And it's also like, I ask questions. I'll be texting you 3:35 a.m. I'll be texting you 11:52 p.m.
Facts.
Just random questions.
And about Sage, man, he gonna text.
I'm gonna ask you a question, bro. I'm gonna ask you a question. So, between a mixture of intrinsically knowing what to do and having people that you can bounce ideas off of, it kind of just allowed me to do what needed to be done for this household and for you. At some point, you need to spread your wings and start your own. So
I like that.
That's what I do as a second,
Whew.
That's the dichotomy right there, because we're all Bible believing Christians, and we all know what the Bible says about leaving and cleaving, right? Leaving your mother and father and cleave to your wife. You two shall become one. I know what the Bible says, but let's be honest.
Please.
That Opara role does not care.
Bro, I got since I've been married, I still get hit up for almost like every day. Like indirectly, folks go home, they come back home. Hey, this such and such family, such and such person. Oh, we went to the one family. We saw this uncle. Oh, this uncle. There we need money for like literally updates, and it subconsciously occurs, and it actually occurs to where
Mm.
it's recalling the position that I'm in to now understand that I have to, even in some kind of small way, figure out a
Mhm.
way to maybe raise funds to help out,
Yeah.
younger
Oh,
cousins
bro,
with
yeah.
their tuition. Right
Yeah.
now money is very scarce in Nigeria. They're trying to do a
Yeah.
cashless society when there's barely any state electricity. I don't know how they're gonna do it, but anyway, right? The
What?
element.
The blood of Jesus, bro.
What?
Like, I don't
Talk
know.
about it.
You don't
Ridiculous.
know,
Yeah,
bro.
but the elements of that, and this is a real situation. Like I'm sitting back, like, hey, let me talk to, a few folks and say, like, hey, we're all, it's my mom's side. It's like, hey, this is going on here. Then need some assistance. Let's see what we can raise. Naira to dollars, like what? Hey, and with that, that's just a small example of ideas that are put in your mind. Like, hey, the service being able to aid assistance in any kind of way,
Mhm.
morally, through words, through ideas, literally, and
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Opara role doesn't care. But I think at the same time it's good because it helps us understand, at least to a degree, what selflessness looks like, depending upon how we
Mm.
have learned the elements of Opara, who we learned it from, and how we saw
Mm.
it. You see, because in reality, a lot of us could still be walking in this Opara role, still trying to just dominate, the air of dominating,
Yeah.
without understanding that, hey, I still need to not oppress people with my position, but more so be
Facts.
selfless with my position. Have a
Facts. Facts.
hearing ear. Uh, have
Facts.
words that are loving.
So, bro, let me ask you this because I notice I do it a lot of times myself. Whenever my family gets together in any setting where we're finally all together, like all the five of us or whatever, we all revert back to our individual roles when we were growing up,
Yeah.
right? So my older sister, she becomes the El Capitan, the mom. She becomes that person. I
Itinerary.
become exactly right.
Yeah.
I become the Opera again. Sage becomes like the younger brother. Like
Rascal.
I'm going to keep things going. I'm going to keep the vibe going. And then the Chelsea is like the middle child, keep everything steady. And we can't bring that into our grown people lives now. And that's, I feel like that's what you were saying with the Opera role. Even though we are out of the house, we're married. We are, by the grace of God, going to stay married and continue to grow our families and build legacy outside of
Yes, sir.
our nucleus family, like our first family. We're rebuilding that family now. How do we stop ourselves from reverting? Can we agree that reverting is a bad thing? And how do we stop ourselves from doing it?
I think, okay. I think at first you have to acknowledge it. I don't think anyone really sees it the same way that you're seeing it. As a matter of fact, up until the time that you brought it up, never occurred to me that like I'm a man away from y'all, and then I come into a room with y'all, and I'm trying to play Uno. And it's actually a strange phenomenon how we just like fall in line. How to stop it? You have to acknowledge it first. I would have never known if you hadn't been so observant of it and aware of it. And I think that's because of the role that you play. When 10 bricks are tossed on your chest, you feel it pretty quickly. And so you can acknowledge it pretty quickly. So I understand that.
Yeah. Appreciate that.
I think first, have a talk. You sit them down and you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. For you, I have to do it for me.
That's tough.
Not as rude as that.
Conversation. That's
not as rude as that. Not as rude as that.
Mecca, you tried to have that conversation?
Very nicely, though.
So I tried to have that conversation and it didn't go well at all. I actually had that conversation with my wife. and I was like, hey,
Ooh.
with my parents and stuff, like just certain things that we're doing, the certain styles of you guys trying to pull me, not just a Opara role, but more so like pull me into a space that isn't very healthy because I need to now understand how to govern and design my own house. I literally had to kind of say it just like that because, again,
Mm.
and this is a personal example, my dad would say, hey, you're still responsible for this house. I'm like,
This house.
like his house. But and I'm like, well, I understand, but that's again one of the elements I told you guys where when you learn Opara the wrong way. But again, that's Opara and the scripture clashing. Because technically as
Mhm.
Opara, you're still supposed to help build and or at least shape your parents' home while you have your own home. Literally,
Mhm.
you're stretching yourself, which is why in certain societies back then, Oparas had helpers. They had
Mm.
people that would aid them either by having multiple wives or by just literally having workers that would do certain things because you can't stretch yourself that far for real. If we really talk,
It's
no,
interesting.
it's true.
Facts.
When we talk about the old style of Ndibo, of Oparas, there were a lot of environments where people had aides and helpers to just to govern stuff, whether to govern acres of land that they have, us from our like if you look at our family, like a lot of our great grandparents had acres, they had workers. Yeah, man,
Yeah.
like this is actually
Yeah.
true. So so basically, if I'm in a situation where my dad's like, hey, you're still supposed to be a member of managing this house, I'm like, no, I need to pull away, or at least I need to focus carefully, saying that respectfully, on my house.
Mm.
Ulo no
Hmm.
ulo
Yes.
kinkem. Measure when I
Okay.
fix it,
My house.
manage it,
Yep.
maloachi, I'll come back. You get me? And that's a real thing
That's
because in
what's up.
reality, I didn't see the stock providing all of the eggs. You know what I'm saying? I saw
Mm.
the assistant to the stock providing all the eggs. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't the head hen
Mhm.
wasn't doing it. It was
Oh,
you know what I'm
Facts. Facts.
saying?
Facts.
yeah. Okay.
So
I know exactly what you
okay,
mean,
so
bro.
so
Yeah.
with that, that's already one example of not seeing Opara done the right
The
way.
way it was supposed to. So
That's
so I
uh-huh.
that's why ours aren't supposed to get married early.
I think so.
I'm gonna throw that out there.
What's
I
early?
can see that.
Like what?
You
What's
tell
what's?
me, bro, because I've heard crazy. I've heard like operas should not really get married until they've like fully established their parents,
Well,
like
What if
30s.
your parents didn't prepare themselves at all, and now you have to spend 10, 15 years of your adult life?
Faith, that's half of us in
Bro,
America, bro. You say
That's
that's
not
bro,
happening.
that's
That's not
what we
happening.
go through. That it makes no sense to me. It makes no sense
that's
to me.
happening in
But
Nigeria too.
that's the expectation lead. That's the expectation lead, right? So if you're expected to carry the weight of yourself and your family, there's no space for anybody else,
Yeah.
right? Um, I like the point that you brought up about having helpers to do it
Yeah.
because I feel like this is exactly where a second son fits in.
No, bro,
Yeah.
Okay.
that's brilliant. And so first, before we hit this conversation, I never in my whole Opara existence or Igbo existence heard an Opara or another Igbo brethren elaborate the mantle of authority to a second son the way you just did. And I really, really, really want to use that as an example in the future in any other kind of conversation with your permission, because that's some free game that will help a lot of brothers who share the same mom.
Mm.
Because in reality, Oparas don't realize that you're going to marry. You're not, no one's pulling your title away, but in reality, you got to focus on your house, even if it's for a month or a year or 3 years, whatever. Because if you look at the
Facts.
reality of governing your house, it's not a joke. It's like from the finance to the security around your house to some of the morals
Bro, it's
to the
everything.
hobbies that you guys
To
would
the
to the
prayer.
prayer life, bro.
Yep.
It's really like you gotta focus. And having
Facts.
a brother already, that's a trick, a key trick, and especially if you guys have a good relationship. Because I've seen a lot
Oh
of
my
Igbo
goodness.
families where the brothers are like Mike Tyson
You
and
wouldn't believe
Ali.
it.
Yeah.
They're not
wouldn't
cool
believe
for real.
it.
For they're like envious of each other. Like
Yeah.
I'm like, what is this? I'm like, man,
Like Cain and Abel.
it's
High
Ijoku.
key.
Seriously. So, but I'm gonna let you go back because I just want to say that is really cool what you
I
did. I've
appreciate that.
never ever heard or seen that, and I think that needs to be other Oparas that have younger brothers need to understand that you can temporarily pull and say, hey, bro, so one of them, this oche, no nimeya, do this for me real quick.
Fact.
You're not giving up your chair
Fact.
like Cain and Abel. You're just saying like, yo, sit right here real quick. Let me
Yo,
take care of my
yeah.
family. Go ahead.
So two things on that. One, the reason that Sage and I are able to have a good relationship is because we worked on it. We weren't always like friends.
Yeah, not even
I
close.
recognize that I messed a lot of that up early, right? The second thing is if I found my identity and I found my worth in what I did, in my actions, in my service as the Opara role, I would have been reluctant to hand that off when I needed to in order to take on bigger fish. If I only saw that my mom loved me or that I was valuable in my community and my house because I was the one doing certain things, I was the one buying her Valentine's Day presents, I was the one, cleaning up the house, doing stuff like that, making sure that the bills were paid on time, all of this stuff, right, that Oparas can step into the role to do. I would not have looped Sage in, taught him these skills, and then handed it off to him gradually, right? To as I left the house and did all these things as well and grew my family. So that's really, really important. Don't attach your worth at all to your service. And in the same sense, recognize that as a leader, your number one role as a leader is to create other leaders. If Sage had a little brother right now, which we do, we have two little brothers right now.
Yeah.
Our goals should be to equip those dudes to be the best representatives of Christ and the best leaders in this community that they can be.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
And when that opportunity opens up, like really, when that opportunity opens up, maybe when they're a little bit older, we need to hop on that.
Well,
but I did want to ask Sage. Okay, I'm gonna ask Sage real quick. Sage, what did you recognize while jumping into that role? Like, how did you do it? You know what I'm saying?
I noticed how much more you have to communicate with every family member. I noticed if we're being very transparent here, I noticed the strain between the relationships of each family member. And I noticed that somebody had to be the one to mediate and to console.
Yeah.
I just saw an empty chair, and I was like, I noticed the patterns and I noticed the energy being off. So I knew somebody would have to fill it.
Facts. Lives don't do well in vacuums,
Much
right? They always need something to fill it.
Yeah. I would say being observant is one of, if not the most important trait to have as a man. Being able to catch on to things, nip it in the bud quickly, and not let things like fester, because it will snowball. If that's one thing about Africans, things will snowball.
Quickly. Expeditiously.
It's kind of like the same, when like you're in the club with your girlfriend and she drank a little bit too much and she's like, they can't say excuse me. It's like that every day though, with everything. Like he didn't wash the dishes, like get out of my house. You know what I'm talking about? So like it gets kind of tough. Have you seen that Vine? I'm going on a tangent here. Sorry. Have you seen that Vine from like 2013 where the mom came home from work and the child was still sleeping and he comes out and she's like mowing the lawn like in her bathrobe, but he's like, Mom, I will do, and then she's like, I'll do it myself. Please tell me you've seen it. Yes? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Wow.
So things definitely escalate quickly if you're not prepared to mitigate.
Yeah. As an Opara, I would second that statement highly, that emotional intelligence is probably the number one thing that you need to have in that.
For sure.
Yeah. Because you are, while you are your father's your father's backup. Let's call it what it is, right? As an opera, you are essentially serving as your father's backup. You are also your mom's rock, right? In the event that, and her confidant as well, right? Because there's going to be certain things that only you can do for her that your dad can't even do. So, yeah, you need both that masculine energy and that feminine energy, and an understanding of both of those energies as well to navigate.
So, oh man. So on that piece, right? When you learn the emotional intelligence the wrong way, when you see uh, the the gorilla in
Mm-hmm.
communication, in speaking, in just how can I say? I don't, the words are evading me right now. When you just see the wrong type of governing around emotional intelligence, whether from
Mm-hmm.
uncles, because for me, I was around a lot of different people. So it was like uncles, and of course, older cousins are learning from their older ones, so they're not even like qualified too. So it's the same trend, right? So from uncles
Yeah.
and or dad, it's like you begin to realize that wait, I'm not supposed to go into a kind of a defensive counter argument when someone is pointing out a correction. I'm not supposed
Yeah.
to go into a narrative of oh, you can't talk to me like that. I'm the oldest. No, I
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't feel intimidated when a sibling is trying to check me on something. No,
Facts.
that's the most. It's like so,
Right.
when you see either your dad or your uncles operate that way with their siblings or with their immediate community during the the village meetings and all those things, it's like hold on, is this am I supposed to be aligned to like that? Like no.
Yeah.
This is why
Yeah.
I always say that, or this is why I'm going to come back and say here, because I don't always say this, but for the sake of this conversation, and I love how Winston, you and Sage have just been so vulnerable to look at it from your perspective, because it is a rare situation in an Igbo household, but it's not uncommon. So I want y'all to understand that. But
Facts.
you didn't miss like that, bro, because you could have still had the dad in the household, but you would have seen different pockets of things done the wrong way. That's
Mm.
the other side of the coin you got to see, and you also have to no seriously, and you also have to see that you may have been you may have been at a greater advantage because you had
Mm.
to
I was gonna say that.
no see, let's talk real
I was
quick.
gonna say
Yes,
it.
yeah, okay, go
Let's
for it.
call a spade a
Go
spade.
for it. Run your race.
I think it is. I think it was advantageous that instead of seeing the wrong way, we saw no way,
Whew.
because we sought out the right way.
Jesus Christ! Oh my
Oh
God!
shoot.
That's
Yeah. Yeah.
that's just how I feel, and I
And
think
it's interesting that you said that, because like God will either save you out of something, right, or he'll save you from going into it in the first place. That's why you only hear two testimonies in church, right? And we always clap and scream for the one that God saves you out of, right? Like, oh, I was in the streets, I was selling crack, and God came into my life and changed me, and now I'm a pastor. That's the one we scream for, right? But we don't scream for the person that got saved at 8 years old and never left the church, and now they're 30 and they're still in the church. That's
No one
boring,
does that,
right?
Yeah.
Nobody does that. But it's advantageous to have no way rather than building up the wrong way and then having to tear down the wrong way just to rebuild at first.
Rebuilding.
I think
Oh my gosh! Dang.
I think this is freedom to some women right now. I think this is freedom to some young men right now. Listen, we're not advocating for divorce. We're not advocating for breaking God's law in any semblance of it. But it is beneficial to not build up a house incorrectly
Oh my gosh.
just to have them tear it down. Just because you're lonely, I'm gonna just say plain.
Go ahead.
Just because you are lonely, do not shack up with that man that's going to teach your son how not to be a man. Because another woman will have to deal with that when he gets older. Because now your son will not grow into a man. Your son will grow into a big boy.
That's the problem.
I thought you were gonna say another B word.
Yeah, that's that too. That
Yeah.
I thought he was just
I
gonna.
was thinking. Listen. Yeah.
Whoa.
In old life, that Winston before.
yes.
Yeah. I'm day 14 without cussing. Right now.
Yeah. I saw the whiteboard, and that's why I was
good.
worried for you.
That's good, man.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
Way to
bro,
go.
I've been really doing this thing. Yep, 12 o'clock. It's gonna be day 15. No cussing, and I played 2K too, and I lost.
Ah, man, yeah. I'm gonna let one out.
I did not. I almost did. But no, but seriously though, that's the point that I'm trying to make here. You know what I'm saying? Y'all agree? I'm sure.
You're talking, bro. And honestly, just to add to that, this is where you have to look at your disadvantages as advantages, because honestly, and I've learned two things in this conversation, that when you unlearn, you have to realize that you were taught and you learned in an accurate way, and that unlearning is such a process on its own. You know that Opara doesn't mean you can't hand over to a greater assistant, right? To a greater servant than you were at that time, because you have to go and serve in a different capacity. Exactly. Man, like it's so much. And you know, putting it back to you and Sage.
What you do, it's not who you are.
Yeah, putting it back to you and Sage, like
Opara is what you do. Yeah.
Y'all really literally actually had the advantage to start to man up early. That's the thing I've noticed. And when you Winston early, it's like, wow, like you literally began punching and swinging at a dynamic that's different from the rest of us who had the Igbo dads there and who had the Igbo dads to show us Opara, even though it was from certain elements that weren't even very healthy. You know what I'm saying? Because I've had to learn a lot of things. The next brethren you guys talk to has had to unlearn a lot of things, because like Sage said, the game is not being transferred. The transfer of knowledge in a productive, cohesive, and peaceful manner. It's really not. It's like, you know, we're playing Madden, and if you miss the touchdown, you're gonna give me 20 push-ups and nonsense, idiot. Like, what is that?
Come on,
you know,
it's FIFA, by the way. It's not Madden.
My fault. I'm at FIFA.
Oh yeah,
I'm at FIFA.
Yeah.
No, big time. That's a big cultural importance right there. My fault. I'm at FIFA. Ronaldinho and JJ Kocha.
You know what I'm thinking of right now? There's a level of like self-awareness and spiritual awareness and emotional intelligence that this generation has that our parents just did not have.
Yeah.
Their grandparents didn't have, et cetera, right? And everybody's parenting what they have. I'm not saying that we'll be perfect parents because our parents weren't perfect. Our kids aren't going to be perfect, but they're going to be better than us. That's how it should work, right? So I can't wait for an Igbo meeting where I'm in a room with my peers. Okay. And instead of feeling ostracized when I walk in there and, you know, I do the Igbo handshake with the snap, I could just go in there and I could just dap somebody up, or I can just go in there and shake a hand. Like, even though I want to preserve culture and keep it, I recognize the, how do I put this? I recognize the growth that comes with diversity in these social settings. So do you think that when it is finally our time to show our culture to the next generation, how do we do that? How do we show them how to be Oparas without losing the culture? How do we keep the good parts and take away the bad, bro? Like, how do we do that? Because it all just interlocks.
I am going to let Emeka speak for sure, because I have no idea. But before, there's this quote. I think LL Cool J actually said it. So let me preface. LL Cool J said it. But it was, culture or tradition is peer pressure from dead people, which sat with me. All right. That's all I want to say.
Way to throw a bomb real quick.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
Culture or tradition is peer pressure from dead people.
LL Cool J said that?
LL Cool J said that.
What was he on back then? That was that.
Why did he say
that was early hip hop.
I don't know.
That's profound.
You know what I mean? Did he make FUBU? Like, I don't know. Wearing a Congo hat. and he said that.
The cool G,
Yeah.
the
What's he
the
going
cool G
with?
hats. I think.
He got it.
Wow.
Wise man. Look it up. If you're
What
watching this,
do you-
look it up.
what do you
LL
think?
Cool J.
I had to.
Yeah.
Look it up. I'm so serious.
I have to sit on that for a
So
minute.
serious,
That
too.
just like threw me off.
Wait, Emeka, what do you think about that though? Because you would be the one. If anybody would be leading an Igbo meeting, it's gonna be Emeka.
Oh Lord. So yeah, Sage to a bum. That was good. I'm gonna look that up after. Winston, to honor that question, I would say we have to unlearn a few things before we transition the culture. So there are many peers or paras that are older than me, right, that are teaching their kids culture right now. And what I see them doing, they're transferring the music, they're transferring the language, they're learning how to speak in a more polite tone to communicate, to present a peaceful dialogue with the young child. These are young babies, maybe like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? And that's where you want to start. Make the environment so harmonious that any single new piece of information that comes to that child or that comes to you, you can easily transfer it. So I think if we all together in the room and transfer our culture, what it looks like us being real life Igbo Americans who have healed and who have tried to take a step back to understand what they never knew about their culture, but then at the same time progressing forward like ever so quickly. Like, and when I say step back, just like understanding a few nuances, because I think we're all doing that. We're all trying to understand a few pieces of culture that maybe are good, right? Because again, we don't want to carry things that aren't efficient and healthy for our spirit and that aren't healthy for our morale as men, because we got to keep that man part there into the next phase. You know, there were things in Igbo culture that Hana man those days. Like my mom was a twin, so there were things that we used to do back in culture that in some communities, some communities used to do that, and basically, my mom's wouldn't have been here today. I wouldn't be here. So like, you know, so not everything carries over. Some practices do not carry over for just reasons. So I think it's the way it looks. If I'm going to be a part of any team to lead any meeting, one, how do we understand Opara today and Igbo culture? More importantly, what I see going on with the example I gave earlier, I just continue to observe young Oparas, parents now, but the Oparas transferring music language. That's a big thing right now because that's been a detriment. Music and the language, music, and then also transferring certain gestures. Oh, one them a little, you know. Then even the snap. I've seen a couple older homies like snap their little kids in the finger, like those kind of things.
Got to.
Those
gotta teach them the snap.
Yo, the snap always threw me off as a kid. I didn't get the snap until maybe junior high. I was like, oh, okay, I have to snap. And anytime someone was snapping, I'm like, oh, that person's African. Then you're one of us.
It was the coolest thing in the world.
It's like,
it was so cool.
You know what I mean? So
I remember getting like 3 or 4 really good snaps. Like, have you ever gotten
and
a really
it
good
pops.
snap with
I know what you
somebody?
mean.
And you're like, wow.
That's my man's
You
right
know what
there.
it's like? You know what it's like when in Black Panther, when like they pulled their lip down and you got like the tattoos. It's kind of like that. It's like,
That's
oh, okay, we're of one.
Yeah, like the vibration is synchronized, like all the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that snaps hard because you have to like kind of draw your finger at the same time, so it's not really that easy.
Yeah.
You know, like the
you gotta practice.
Dude.
Like you need somebody to practice with almost.
And you know, the Mexicans, they have their, you know, the boom. That's them all day.
The who?
Mexicans, Spanish folks.
That's crazy.
They got that thing. I don't know if y'all. You know, yeah.
Like with a J, bro. You said Mexicans.
Yeah, I heard H. I heard.
Oh, well, it's not pronounced Mexicans. Mexicans.
I didn't know.
Yeah,
that.
I'll take it.
Mexico.
I'll trust you.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, true. Yeah, it is
Mexico. Yeah. But like the Mexicans, right? Or, you know, Spanish folks, they hit the right? And that's way simpler, or, you know, it's simple. It's not as rigid as the you know, but, you know, without digressing too much. Yeah, man, I see some of them showing that to their children. And those are things to carry over. Understanding how to ewology. A lot of folks are doing that, showing their children, and I think these are good things to carry over because I have kola nut right now in the house. My dad came back from Alibo a while ago, and brought some kola nut. I appreciate that, and those are things of the culture that he has shown that I think again were good and productive. Amongst other pieces that I had to relearn because again, if he didn't get certain things transferred over and comprehended the right way, you're not going to pass it down. It becomes damage that you have to correct. But anyway, that's to answer your question, Winston. I think that's what I would look at if I were to say, hey, we're going to have a type of Igbo meeting in the future. Men that can heal, understand the wrongs that have been transferred over to them, and look at some objective pieces, right? Language, maybe things such as kolona, like we said before. Understanding maybe certain Igbo,
I love it.
some certain Igbo high holidays like Iriji, right? Yam Festival, like stuff like that, and also the importance of Ezinolo, which is Ezinolo is the larger compound, so that can comprise your dad, his brothers, sisters, right? And then the neighboring kindred that's maybe kin through the grandfather or grandmother. Like Isunalaw is such a dynamic factor, but it's also very complex too. I think that's because that's every Igbo man is loyal to his family first, his village, and then his town. That's it. It stops at his town, right? Other than that, like they're autonomous. That's why every Igbo community in the East is autonomous. Like the governing system is so independent to that community, but they still have an honor system that is very biblical too. Don't do unto others, you don't unto yourself. Many practices that are similar actually. But yeah, man, I think that's what I would assume a future Igbo meeting would be based on.
Right.
Yeah, I know I said a lot there, but
so. No, it was really, really good. Thank you for that, bro. Like I'm learning. So that's why I asked that question. Like people think that I shoot these podcasts or like these videos or whatever, like to disseminate knowledge, but a lot of the time, the real value comes from me having to learn it. So I appreciate these types of conversations. We talked about a lot today, and we believe it or not, we're going on like an hour right now.
Are you sure?
Really?
And this is
it is 11 something. I forgot.
Yeah, we can't believe it, right? I know, and I feel like we covered a lot of good stuff, and I've learned from my experience as an opera what that means. So let's do this. I do this with my wife after we shoot every podcast. It's a segment I call "If I Were a Boy," right? Like the Beyonce song, "If I Were a Boy," right?
Can you sing it again? Actually, I don't know if I.
Yeah, I can
go ahead.
If I were a boy.
Yeah, there it is. Okay.
I actually don't know the rest of the song, but
the next verse.
If I were a boy, no, that's it. I think I would understand, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. There you go. That's all I know. So, if you were a boy, how would you disseminate this information to a 13-year-old version of yourself? You can tell you have 3 sentences to get this entire conversation into your 13-year-old version's mind. What are you telling them?
3 sentences.
It don't have to be. Let's say like 3 to 6 sentences, just so you don't go on a 5-minute tangent.
Junior high, I was fighting a lot.
The 13-year-old version of you is not going to listen.
Yeah, I was actually fighting a lot in middle school. Middle school is one of my worst educational years
Who you telling,
of
bro?
my life. I'm not gonna hold you. Like it was horrible.
13 was 6th grade, or
Who knows?
No, junior high. That's
junior high.
Seventh,
So 8th, 7th, 8th, 9th,
7th, 8th, yeah.
7th,
7th, 8th.
Man,
Okay.
that was an interesting period. Okay, I would say I'm really trying to like remember certain things I would do. Like, I mean, go-go was real big. It's a native dance or music to the DMV area. So I was busy trying to learn a go-go, be cool, and
Go.
yeah, it's like what y'all have in
It's a DMV
it's like what y'all
thing.
have in New Jersey. The thing like the
Jersey
there
club
you go.
dancing.
But go-go is a bit
Yeah,
diff. Yeah,
Mar-
go-go's been
yeah,
around since
y'all
the
have it
80s,
all.
70s. Actually, it's very infamous and honorable to the DMV, DC area especially.
Hey, Emeka, if you were a boy, what would you tell
Yeah,
yourself?
yeah. So
Oh yeah.
so if I was a boy, what I would tell myself about Opara is, um, you're so important that you need to understand who you are. That's what I would tell myself, for real. I think that would get my attention. You're so important. You need to understand who you are. That's more, but no, that's more, but that's like,
That's only one sentence. That's only one
is it?
sentence. You got 6 sentences.
Oh, okay. Who you are, because without
Mhm.
understanding who you are, you continue to try to fit in to a space that's not
Yeah.
designed for you. Something like that. Because
Mhm.
I really was doing that in junior high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I would try to myself. I think so. Yeah.
Okay. 3 to 6 sentences. 13-year-old me. First, I would say, can you repeat the question?
Mm-hmm.
Can you repeat the question?
Oh, can I repeat the
Can
question?
you repeat the question? Yeah.
Okay, so if you were a boy, how would you disseminate this entire conversation to a 13-year-old version of yourself?
Okay. I would say it is very important to learn emotional intelligence
Mm-hmm.
and to be observant of people's emotions and observant of your place in this world. From this day forward, start to validate yourself and seek knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Do y'all want to know why I asked that question specifically? Because I know 13-year-olds aren't listening to this, so I'm not like trying to get a message out to 13-year-olds, right? The reason I asked this question specifically is because every person is dealing with, or has dealt with, or has not started dealing with trauma from that age, around that age range. So when we speak to that person in us, right, certain things that trigger us, it's speaking to that 13-year-old version, that 12-year-old version, that 11-year-old version in us. That's what is stirring up inside of us. It's not the 30-year-old that we are today. You know what I'm saying? So I asked that question because I want you to speak to your little Winnie. I want you to speak to your little Emeka, your little Sage, and talk to yourself at the point of the trauma in a voice that they would understand so that you can move and grow past it in your capacity today. Does that make sense? That's why I asked that question. Every time I ask that question to myself, I find and unlock a new piece about me that I didn't even know, that I respond to. And that's why I feel like that's very important. So thank y'all for the gift of y'all vulnerability. Thank you guys for coming on this show, man, talking through this thing with me.
Sure.
I feel like I know how to be a better Opara now. Sage, I feel like you're already in the role, bro, and you're doing an amazing job, man.
Really
Thank
appreciate
you again.
it, man.
Thank you, honestly. Give you the props, man. Big props.
Couldn't do it if it wasn't for people like y'all. I need to be able to call y'all, asking y'all questions, and you're there. So I appreciate it.
That, man.
Shout out to David.
Yeah, David, if you're watching this.
David, if you're watching this, bro,
it's
love. It's love.
Yeah, David is another one of our brothers.
Okay.
He's been pivotal. He might as well. I feel like he was lost at birth, bro. I feel like he's my younger brother and Sage's big brother. So
older. I think we're peers. I think we're peers, but
yeah.
You know.
Anyway, Emeka, yo, thanks for hopping on, bro. Like this podcast wouldn't have been what it was without you, man. You the real MVP for this one.
Please.
I feel like we gotta run this back.
I'm game.
What y'all have in mind?
Maybe not at midnight, but I love this. Emeka, you're a wealth of knowledge. Love talking to you. So I think we definitely should run this back.
We'll set this up.
Okay.
I love you guys. I'm gonna go hug my wife and pray she's not mad
Go
at
to
me
bed.
for shooting
All
a
right,
podcast at midnight. I catch you guys later. Peace.
Salute.